Welcome to Clever Orbits. I am one of your hosts, Louis Brantmeyer. Accompanying me are the fine fellows,
Tyler Brantmeyer.
And Richard Futrell.
Yeah. Welcome, guys. So, how did you like Context is for Kings, Episode 3 of Season 1 of Discovery? Tyler, let's start with you.
A little more along the lines of the Trek we're used to. There's a lot of Trekno-babble, so to speak. A lot of situations where space itself is sort of an enemy, and they're conducting a highly top-secret experiment involving magic space fungus that apparently allows them to travel faster than the speeds they have been, at like just, conventional warp speed. And it creates a lot of moments of tension and just horror at some points, failed experiment gone horribly wrong, and a giant monster that they need to run from. And, of course, there's a Klingon, just one, in a very humorous capacity.
Actually, I think he was being serious. I mean, he came off, I know probably to everybody he came off as like humorous in
He was definitely
that
being
moment.
serious.
Do you think he was just joking around?
I think
he was shushing.
He definitely did not want to die. He was.
No, I wasn't sure if the Klingons aboard, or that Klingon in particular, was trying to just stay alive, or was he hunting the creature? Or whether the creature was already aboard the ship.
I do not think he was hunting the creature. Yeah, with all those dead Klingon compatriots nearby and the Batleth on the floor and him, like, creeping around, I feel like probably he was hiding for his life. And probably there might have been a person or two left on the ship. Like, I think that's even a possibility. They may have destroyed a ship with people on it. Yeah. I mean,
I think Captain Lorca is capable of that.
Yeah. So, Tyler, did you have more? Did you want to talk about Tilly or the way that they speak Burham? Or
Tilly, arguably my favorite new character of the series.
Really?
Her nervousness and her light optimism, just light on her feet and very naive, it seems. But she's very capable and intelligent. Mary Wiseman, she's probably my favorite actor on the show right now so far.
Really?
You can see she's very earnest, and she initially treats Burnham's character coldly, but warms up to her once she gets to know exactly what kind of person Burnham really is.
Yeah, she had that moment of honor, right? Like where she apologized, which was really cool.
Precisely. She stopped caring about what her commanding officers think of her in that moment because her apology was basically in front of two of them.
Yep.
Yeah, and from
what did you think of Lorca?
Lorca? Well, he's insane, clearly.
What makes him insane? Now, Richard, you think he's kind of an anti-hero, maybe?
Oh, well, he's clearly sort of a bit unhinged and dangerous. Someone did an interview with Jason Isaacs, right, where someone described his character, and he said, do you remember this? Like, crazy. Something like that.
Oh, yeah,
he's clearly, like, dark and willing to do things. He's clearly someone who's seen things. Maybe they're willing to see that again. And I guess he's, following the tradition of these sort of captains in most Star Trek series are sort of these weird characters of the week, like Captain Jellicoe, these sort of hard-nosed, sort of questionable, aggressive captains who.
Yeah, it's like what if we had to spend the whole season with them? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, actually, I think it's a great choice. I mean, I don't think he's actually evil. I think he's committed, and I think he's kind of Tyler, you're going to love this, I think he's kind of the Jack Bauer of Starfleet captains. I mean, he's doing whatever it takes, and that makes, I'd like to think of him thinking of himself as just, though in the interview he gave, or the interview that came out on TrekMovie.com today, he talks about how when the security officer says, anything, anytime, Captain, she said that in such a way that she's implying a relationship between them. And, well, actually, he explicitly says we get to spend some time together tonight. And so he has this whole, I think, unjustified interpretation of Shatner's Kirk, where he thinks that Kirk basically had his way with any ensign or lieutenant below him who he was interested in. And that's basically what he's up to, Lorca. So that much makes him kind of Netflixy, gray, morally questionable. However, I don't think that Kirk actually did that. I think the whole issue in The Enemy Within, right, where like he says his evil twin comes up to Janice Rand and is like, we need to stop hiding from each other. Like the whole propriety thing is that the captain doesn't like go down on anyone who's below him in rank, or excuse me, or yes, actually he can only not go down on them. No, but he can do anything else. No, what I mean is, like, of course, it would be inappropriate for him to have a relationship. And like Picard later on in Lessons with that geologist, 6th season TNG talks about like ask Deanna Troy's permission. So, I mean, actually thinking back now, maybe it wasn't unheard of. Maybe it wasn't impossible. It was just tricky and like, I don't know. We don't have real evidence to believe that Kirk was that way. We do definitely with Lorca. And I like to believe that Kirk went after all those alien women because he wanted to keep things clean at home. So
wanted to avoid awkward workplace situations.
Yeah. I mean, there's that one episode where it's called The Dagger of the Mind, and there's this cute lieutenant who beams down with him to that planet where there's that machine that's manipulating Dr. Simon Van Gelder, and he's just crazy. It's the episode where the very first episode where you see mind meld, and it's implied that like he maybe got a little tipsy and kind of hit on her at a Christmas party, but that seems to be as far as they go. So yeah, man, I've got some voluminous knowledge of the Star Trek canon.
It's useful.
It is to provide some context and stuff. So yeah, I like. Oh yeah, that was the best, right? So I was sitting there on the couch with two coaches, and we paused the episode at that point. One of them comes from the holistic perspective of like physical healing and emotional release as a key to transformation and upticks in performance and accomplishment and magnetization of what you want. The other one's all about like relationships and community. And so we stop it and we looked at each other and we were like, oh wow. So this whole the arc is basically her starting in guilt and shame, which she took on by agreeing with the story that other people have made up around her, even Starfleet, that she's guilty for doing something wrong, number one. And number two, like Lorca, the way that he listens to her is redemptive. His listening and his approach to her is the very first thing that has her view that she's adopted of herself begin to shake loose, and she begins to let go of the guilt and shame just enough to start believing that she can add value and contribute to the community and stop the war. Like I think the stage is set for the most amazing arc in character growth we've ever seen in Star Trek. Number one, because we've never seen somebody like the story follow one character very strictly and very intensely. Number two, because she's a character from a different perspective, as they were saying when they were writing the show, than the captains. Usually it's the captain dealing with some crisis. And usually, Next Gen, Voyager you kind of have 7 of 9 developing, but like it wasn't dramatic and it wasn't significant and it wasn't a huge internal compass shift in the character. So number 2 and 3, and then like the serialized nature of the show allows us to really do that character shift in real subtle, elegant, sustained ways. So I'm excited. I mean, if for nothing else than that, though I am excited for all these other reasons, this space spore thing. How does the drive fail? We know that, they aren't using transwarp in the 24th century, and they aren't using this when Kirk comes around. So it's got to disappear. There's got to be something wrong with it. Clearly, it's like turning people inside out like Galaxy Quest or a David Cronenberg film. That's something that we don't want. Maybe happens again.
Transporters do that in the motion picture, so it's possible to work that out.
True,
yeah.
But transporters weren't organically based.
And there's a real chance that this is Section 31. You saw the black badge in the beginning, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that Section 31 has some hand in what goes on this ship, and that Lorca is actually working in tandem with them. I mean, come on, it's the only group we're aware of where carte blanche discretion is given to do whatever is necessary to protect the interests of the Federation. So, maybe they even still have that travel technology, but okay, yeah, I mean, just running with that line of thinking, maybe it does work. Maybe they use it to help with the Klingon War, and maybe it sticks around, but it's only in the hands of Section 31, and a lot of this is classified. Like, maybe, but we don't really know that
I'm pretty sure
yet.
it's just not going to work out at all, because we haven't seen any hints of anything like this, unless you can think of anything elsewhere.
No, nothing like it.
I think it's possible it's Section 31, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, the original series era, it seems like there's just a lot less centralized control from the Federation over whatever's going on in space. You just get the sense that, it's like the Wild West. There's a lot of weird stuff going on out there. Good chance that Section 31 doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it's really cool because we finally are 100% in, like, familiar Star Trek, because it's so unfamiliar and weird and strange and different and new and sci-fi. I mean, like, this was a good second pilot, and I like this show. And I mean, I loved the previous two, but I really like this one as well. So
there's a lot of discussion online that says either it is the case or it should be the case that this was actually the original pilot, and all that stuff we saw from the first two episodes was going to be flashbacks, as like Michael Burnham slowly, like the first shot of the series was going to be her in the prisoner transport. And then over the course of the series, she would talk about what happened, and we'd see all the stuff from those two episodes. I don't know. Speculation that could have been how it was originally filmed. I personally really liked the two prologue episodes. I think they were really cool, and this one is different. It's cool in different ways. Yeah, I think it's really a marketing thing. I think it's a presentation thing. Like, the first two episodes play more to the lowest common denominator among Trek and sci-fi fans. Like, or not lowest, cancel that. They play to a particular sector who's interested in action adventure more than thinky philosophical stuff. I mean, this one certainly had a lot of space horror, not space violence. It was like aliens and in those tight quarters with the big monster. There was a lot of action in this. It was really a horror film.
You also had
the end.
I mean, you did have the sequence where Burnham uses Vulcan martial arts to fight up those prisoners. Yes. So there's no shortage of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I liked that, and then I liked the hard-ass Lieutenant Yar stand-in.
Yeah.
Played by Battlestar Galactica's
Lika Sharma.
Lika Sharma. Yeah.
I really wanted to mispronounce that as well. Well, anyway.
I didn't know how to pronounce it, to be honest.
Lika Shawarma. That's what I was thinking about saying, because Shawarma's apparently great.
Oh.
No, she's a great actress, and I'm curious to see what's going on between her and Lorca and how that's working out. I like that Saru came back. The bridge is massive. Well, okay, let's stop with Saru. Saru, has changed. He's developed. He's gotten balls. He's a first officer now. I mean, and he's got presence in a way that he didn't before. He was kind of skittish before, and I don't discern I mean, there's this one slight scene at the end where he's eating, and actually I really liked it because he pours a bunch of salt into what is very clearly tea. So it's such a subtle little thing. Like, he's got a tea bag and he pours a bunch of. So right after that, the prison ship leaves, and his little things on the back of his neck come out, which shows that he's afraid. And, he kind of gently covers and pushes them down. If he hasn't mastered his fear, he's at least managed it as well as he would need to be a first officer. You're constantly encountering things, and, you're basically in charge of the ship a lot of the time, especially because Lorca likes to rule from the ready room and not the bridge.
So it seems, that is strange. From his standing desk in his ready room.
Which doesn't have much on it other than that triple and the fortune cookies. What does he do on the desk? Oh, who else wanted to hear Burnham's fortune, right? I mean, we spend the whole episode, and then she gets the fortune cookie. I really wish she had broken it out. I mean, what are you actually going to write as a writer there? What are you going to write?
I was surprised that it seemed like they're really hitting us over the head with you are going to see fortune at the end of this episode. It's going to be significant.
What was that? You're going to see portents?
A fortune.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe the metaphor is just that she's fortunate. It's like, what? Okay.
One thing that sort of bugged me is the fact that it's exactly the story that Michael Burnham is laboring here. She gets blamed for being a mutineer and for starting the war. I don't see how she started the war. And even if she did, by killing the guy at the beacon, that seems unrelated to her mutiny. And it just seems like I can only conclude that, there's rumors going around and people are just kind of misinformed. In which case it's upsetting that she doesn't defend herself against that.
Well, she felt guilty because her captain died, and she believed that her captain died. I think she got everyone into that situation. Like, she kind of so right. It's the vicious circle. The what happened, and then the story told about it. Basically, she told herself the story that that this situation is happening because of me. It isn't actually true, factually or objectively, but like this situation is happening. Everyone seems to believe it, and like until Lorca steps in and like redeems her with the truth, which is what's going on. I mean, like he understood that she really understood what had actually happened, and he seems to be the only one in Starfleet willing to look at that. And I mean, probably the evidence that was provided by the crew of the Shenzhou was biased. It was probably like most of the bridge crew was like, well, she mutinied against our captain. She like Vulcan neck pinched her or something or whatever. I guess they didn't see that, but they saw Georgiou angry walking out onto the bridge. And then, the next thing we know, they're on an away mission together that Burnham suggested, and then she's dead. Like, I mean, I think she wanted command or something. Who knows what these people even said? So it's the collapse of the story with what actually happened. Yeah, it is kind of mystifying though. Like what exactly? So somebody joked that what do you call it? Rumors fly fast in space. I mean, like it's funny because how do they all know that? And really, I get the sense that what they're trying to do with this show is to show us the kind of not seedy underside, but the human grayness of Starfleet. Or maybe everybody on this ship is just grumpy and mean. I mean, like...
Yeah, they do seem pretty mean. It really seems like not a good workplace environment on this ship.
No, indeed.
It's a hostile work environment. You should ask for a transfer.
People are really snarky with each other. It's just not professional.
Well,
I mean, in Deep
Most
Space
of that
Nine,
is Stamets.
Yeah. It's Stamets, and it's the security lady is also, she refers to prisoners as garbage. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
unloading
that was
the garbage. Really?
That was unnecessary. Yeah, it was just kind of...
maybe it's a new crew and they don't really, they're all sort of on each other's nerves because they don't know each other too good yet.
Here's my theory, is that the crew takes after the captain. And if the captain is rigorously professional and patient, careful, intelligent, wise, dutiful, then the crew, will follow suit. And so Kirk's crew did with him. Like, he was professional above all. He was kind of brash at the same time, which I think gave McCoy the license that he had to be so vocal as he was, also because they were friends. And then Picard, you can especially see later on how much Riker, Data, Geordi, everybody respects Picard and, takes after him. I mean, Data even, when Data takes command of the ship in Season 7 in Gambit, he tugs his shirt very noticeably the way that Picard does. And, which was not, somebody needs to tell him not the most important facet of Picard to emulate, though he happened to emulate all the right other facets, so it didn't really matter. But, I still want to see a show where Data's in command. I just want to see what happens with Data in command. But we also, speaking of robots, we saw, it's called Arium. What do you guys think about this weird robot character that was apparently Lieutenant Commander?
Well, it's just another instance of a robot that exists in Starfleet before Data shows up.
So I think the one in the first 2 episodes was not a robot. That was someone wearing some kind of tactical helmet.
Well, that was the other one.
Yeah,
that was
probably.
The one from the last episode.
So maybe this one's just another weird helmet.
Maybe. I don't really need that. I mean, it'd be okay if that were true, but yeah. So let's see. I've got a long list. It's funny, I haven't actually looked at any of my notes yet. This is good.
Are you a little concerned that they, when at the very end, when Michael Burnham was tripping on the spores and going places, that they saw Romulus? Like, wouldn't it be shocking for them to know what Romulus looks like, considering they've never seen the Romulans?
I don't think that lends credence to this being a 31 ship. Like, if everything that this crew does, like, and that was actually one of my favorite scenes, was like the traveling instantaneously. I don't think she was tripping. I think she was traveling.
Oh yeah, I was making a pun.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, she was tripping.
Not literally. Yeah. Context is for kings.
Context is for kings. I might say that a lot more this week. Context is for kings. What a great Star Trek kind of title. It really reminds me of the original series.
It's not an extremely Star Trek sentiment, because Lorca's basically saying you don't have to follow the rules, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, not Starfleet, not Federation.
Star Trek is
modernized.
It's got all kinds of people. Some people follow the rules, some people don't. Yeah, there's people like Kuz the Executioner around in this time period.
He is around. Conscience of the King was that episode, actually. So yeah, I think. Well, it's funny, these episode titles, right? They're kind of, Vulcan Hello was quirky. Battle at the Binary Stars was kind of boring and made enough sense. Then you get Context is for Kings, and my absolute favorite is the fourth episode. The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry. I mean,
have you seen the titles for the two after that yet?
What a mouthful.
There are more titles?
Yeah, they just came out today. They're all very grim sounding.
Oh, yeah.
I just remember that the sixth episode is called Lethe, like the River of Death in Hades.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's where we're going.
Yeah, that fits. That's okay. Let's see. My next note is tardigrade. That was the name of the thing. Lorca actually, or Isaacs actually talks about it. He calls it a tardigrade, which you guys should look up on Google. It's this kind of innocuous-looking worm with arms thing, but that's the name of the big monster. Oh, water bear.
Oh, that thing was supposed to be a giant tardigrade?
Yeah.
That's really funny. That's a really good idea. So was that monster created by the Black Alert effect, or
I think we know where it came from. Yeah, that's cool.
Maybe it came from some terrible part of the universe they were exploring with the spores.
That would be interesting. That would be cool. I wonder what Lorca wants to do with it. I mean,
just use it to kill shit.
He's just going to let it loose on a Klingon bird of prey and then beam it back after it's done.
What else is it good for, man?
I mean, it seems like an unnecessarily complicated tactic for mid-battle, midstream. Quick, lower the shields. Beam that thing on board. All right, great. Let it do its work. Takes a couple minutes. All right, they're all dead. Great. Beam it back.
That's the secret weapon they've been developing. It's a big old monster.
Yeah, I don't think that. I like, in the beginning you get some very effective starship porn. It wasn't 10 minutes of circling the Enterprise in motion picture. It was 5 to 10 seconds of really enjoying what everybody was afraid was going to look like a really terrible ship. I still remember showing Emily this 1 minute trailer with kind of crappy music that they came out with last year of the Discovery, and everybody was full of nothing but complaints. They were all like, "Oh, it's so ugly and boxy and stupid looking," and I ignored them for many months, and then eventually I was like, "Yeah, you're right. It's kind of dumb looking." But they streamlined it. They fixed it up, and they made it look better, and it's elegant. It's actually good, because if you look at the ships that came before this, between NX-01 and the Constitution class, the Enterprise, you see the Daedalus class, which is kind of boxy, and it's got a big sphere in the front, and so it kind of makes sense that you'd have a ship that's kind of like this with wings in the back that are kind of weird shaped, and I mean, you could even think of modern space shuttles and stuff. They're not that elegant. They're not that pretty. So
yeah, I think the fact that it's a little clunky really fits the time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny and interesting. I don't know what they're really trying to say with the blue light of the tractor beam saving 2 ships in 2 episodes, right, one after the other. I mean, it was cool, but I hope they realize they used that effect twice in 2 episodes. It's like, okay, we need a new way of saving the day.
Tractor beam color fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. I liked Black Alert. I liked the weird effects on the ship. I liked that probably everybody on that ship's just like, all right, well, we're here. We may die a horrific death, but, Black Alert again. Okay. I mean, the walls are, like, dissolving into these puddle things. I mean, like, what is that? I didn't even know. The breath print ID thing was cool. The CGI. Now, I want to talk about the CGI. For all the beauty that we get from that shot of the sun, the star at the end or whatever it is, and then Discovery, and then the shuttlecraft is actually entirely CGI. Like, when I found out on After Trek, when they're sitting in the shuttlecraft, they're sitting in a green room because it's just really expensive and really complicated to make. So for some reason, that CGI was awesome. I guess it must be like the part around the seats because those seats looked really real. But the CGI reminds me of Babylon 5. It really does.
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah.
I'll allow it. It kind of looks like CGI from the 90s a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I
didn't really want to admit that to myself, but there it is.
It's Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, the CGI is great so far. I feel like maybe they spent most of their budget on the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
And
if the CGI was too good, then there'd be these weenies online saying, like, they didn't have CGI that good in the 23rd century. This must be an alternate timeline. It's not continuity. It's not canon.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't sit with those people. Those people are just whatever. Come on, guys. Oh, we need to talk about Orville at some point, incidentally. But as far as who I don't sit with, but by the way, when Saru's things came up, that meant death was coming, and he noted it to himself. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Maybe it was the people on the prison transport. They're all going to die a horrific death somewhere. I guess that wouldn't give us any information, and it wouldn't be useful for the camera to show us that.
It would be useful if Burham had been on the transport, which he probably believed at the time, or maybe, I don't know, I can't remember, if it was before or after everyone realized Burham was staying.
Well, I think his sense of what's about to die is independent of his personal beliefs. I think it's some sort of objective. It must be temporal. I mean, really. It must be some sort of, like, sudden future sight that gets translated as an instinctual impulse and emotion for him. Because otherwise it couldn't be accurate. And it is accurate, or it's accurate enough so far. But then maybe it could be deceived as well. Maybe he was having, like, a false positive.
Maybe he can sense it through the, quantum fungus substrate network that apparently exists.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's honestly, now that we're talking about it, it's kind of the most risky thing to talk about here. Because, like, suddenly that's now a level of reality that always exists forever. Like,
it's hypothetical.
It's there. Deal with it. You're right. Maybe they're not actually. Well, no. He does say that the Glenn, which I like to think was named after Glenn from The Walking Dead, who died last year, brutally murdered by what was his name? Negan. Great show.
Yeah.
Or John Glenn, which would make a lot more sense. Was traveling to the Beta Quadrant in 1.9 seconds. 90 light years. It would take Voyager less than a week to get home on that speed. Or wait, 733 hours, which might not be, a week. Okay, 30 days. It would take Voyager a month to get home, which is pretty cool. However, which actually leaves the question of, like, whether or not Section 31 was actually on Voyager, and if they had knowledge of this. Well, it makes a bunch of assumptions. I'm not even going to go there. Anyway, so yeah, it seems like it's a real thing. And maybe their theory was wrong, but their tech is right. Their tech was working. So And I did like the use of the Beta Quadrant term. That was pretty cool. Somebody knows where they are in the Star Trek galaxy and universe.
The Klingons are mostly in the Beta Quadrant, right?
Yeah, that's mostly. Starfleet's first mutineer, I thought that was interesting. I thought it made sense of the trial from the previous episode, like why it was in darkness. Like she was such a dark spot on the history of Starfleet that they, like, their court-martial was, like, secretive and weird. I felt like Burham was ultimately hopeless in the beginning, like when the prison transport is about to be destroyed. But I also feel like she was being clever, and this is how I want to read her. Maybe she was just being Vulcan and saying what was there, but I like to read her as kind of subtly manipulating the situation to give herself a tactical advantage. Like, it's one thing to know that you're about to die. It's another thing to have incentive enough when you don't care about your own life to tell other people in the room about it, right? And what did they do? They got all terrified. Like, she instantly, if she needed to, but then again, that makes it kind of intricate and complicated. If she doesn't want to survive, why would she want the advantage over everyone else in the room? So maybe she was just doing her Vulcan thing. Let's see. It was awful. Who else thought it was awful quiet in that cafeteria?
Well, for obvious reasons.
Everybody was like, "Oh, look, it's Burham." Yeah.
It's nice that they're in the cafeteria. That's a good, that's a good original series era details. Like, we don't ever see a cafeteria in Next Generation other than 10 Forward. But
even the food dispensers.
There's a mess hall, and there's even a kitchen in Undiscovered Country.
Yeah, there's a kitchen.
Yes.
The kitchen on Enterprise as well. So, yeah.
They're everywhere.
Kitchens.
Except for,
Richard's next step is to put cameras in all the kitchens. Okay, well, I see that no one will get that joke. The Lorca's test, I liked that. See, that does make him kind of Jack Bauer. Even like mastermind Jack Bauer, like even beyond Jack Bauer's level of like interface with what needs to be done. Like he has a chief of security who with him will manipulate the situation in order to produce the results that he needs. Like
his Chloe
seeing
O'Brien.
How powerful. What's that?
So that's his Chloe O'Brien right there, sort of, kind of.
Oh, yes, she does. They do kind of pull some cons throughout the history of 24. They do kind of like throw up a smoke screen in order to get things done. Yeah. It's like Jack Bauer and his Chloe O'Brien. I really like this. It's fun. And he is going to be, I think, kind of an anti-hero captain. Like, I like that about his character so far. That makes him interesting. I mean, like, we just have to accept this is not your grandfather's Star Trek. Ultimately, there will be hope, and I think that's incarnated, hope and optimism, that's incarnated in Tilly. But, like, it's kind of the writers playing out the modern world. Like, okay, what is the place of hope and optimism? Clearly it's not, at least in their judgment, which I'm not sure that I agree with, clearly it's not unbridled. Like, it's qualified. It's organized, it's directed, it's disciplined, and it's contextualized. Context is for kings again. Like, Tilly, we like her. We like her hope. I think she's cute. I think she's beautiful, actually. Incidentally, beyond all this, like, subtlety and depth and nice, like, character building intimacy between her and Burham, like, I think she is kind of the incarnation of the classic Star Trek perspective on a ship full of Section 31 people trying to win a war, right? I mean, we know how far Section 31 goes to win wars, or they don't even have to be 31. Like, we know how far Starfleet has gone in the past. We've seen Cisco on DS9 help to murder a Romulan. We've seen, Section 31 create a virus to commit genocide against the founders. So there's some dark forces in Starfleet, and it's interesting because we focus on them, just like in Star Trek Into Darkness. Like, we want hope and optimism to win out, and I think the writers are going to get that right. I think that they're going to find some way of having peace with the Klingons, which it was actually great that we didn't see them in this episode except for that one guy. And then, Starfleet will become more like what we see in Kirk's time. Like, it will have to evolve more in that direction away from who it had to become for the sake of this war and winning this war. So, yeah. So Tilly has her day. but her day is coming where she'll be more representative of everything that's going on. The engineering lab is cool. I really liked that.
It was cool. I feel like the setup of the room is also a nice nod to the way that engineering was set up in the original series, where they're like, you come out onto a ledge and there's ladders down and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
Saw that too. Yeah.
I like the reaction cube, which is kind of a strange, funny name for a room. It makes, I might start calling my bedroom the reaction cube, which suddenly has a whole bunch of other meanings. Never mind.
So when Stamets tells Michael Burnham to fix some code for him, we see this code flash on the screen, and that's code from Windows.
Did you really?
Yeah, they're running Windows in the 23rd century.
That's funny. So it was actual legit like Windows code.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, it makes sense.
Well, that happens.
Yeah.
Considering all those explosions on the bridge when power goes down from attacks, they must be running Windows.
Yep. Windows 2250. I can't remember.
2256. That's when this happens.
Right. 2256.
Unless like a year passed between those two episodes we saw. No, but it's only been a few months, right? Yeah.
6 months. Yeah. It's got. I like Stamets. I mean, I like that he exists. I don't really like him, of course.
I think I'd warmed up to him before the end of the episode. Yeah.
I mean, like,
they all have this. Every single one of them has this public perception of Burnham's character being the one who started all of it, who's responsible for all of this. Like, they lump a lot of blame on her, but, word of mouth spreads, and they're not too keen on her being there. And he does tell her, like, look, we were working on something scientific, my friend and I, and it's almost implied that they were in a relationship together before the war started, and then they were split up in order to fast-track the project, work twice as fast. And now his friend is now dead. Maybe as a result of the war starting, they needed to just work more dangerously, work more quickly, and it led to him taking some risks during the experimental phase of what they're studying, this space magic, this fungus that they're somehow, I don't know where they found it, but it's there. And you sort of understand where he's coming from by the end, and even in the moment when you realize, well, all right, Raph's character's kind of being a dick, but can you blame him? But that's what I felt.
Yeah, I think that wasn't actually his boyfriend. Like, his boyfriend, I think, is the chief medical officer. So, but they were close, and they were friends. So, yeah, of course he had his reaction and all of that.
I get that he's angry, but I feel like he doesn't act very professionally.
Yeah, he really doesn't.
True. Yeah, that's not exactly on his list of priorities. I mean, everyone is tasked with being a dick aboard the Discovery. So he has to make sure he commits to that first and foremost. But, can they be professional dicks?
Maybe. So the Alice in Wonderland quotes from Shaniqua Martin Green, or from Burnham, were great. I felt it was just, really cool. I really enjoyed it.
That was a beautiful moment, how she redirected her fear into something that Spock's mother read her as a child.
Yeah, it was like the Litany Against Fear, if you're familiar with Dune, which I know Richard is.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't clear to me when she was in the Jeffries tube if she was reciting it to calm herself down, or if it was maybe she had somehow the way she remembered where to turn and stuff, if she had encoded it into a mnemonic based on Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, interesting. So I took it as her adding literary flair to her experience in the moment. Like her mind was so aligned with noticing. I mean, she's like Spock, except with liberal arts added, right? Spock's focus has always been science and philosophy, mathematics, organizing in the world rather than interpreting it. And knowing that Amanda, Spock's mother, was reading this to her, or having her read this, meant that alongside her Vulcan training, she got training in the more, and so philosophy is kind of liberal arts, but literature doesn't seem like it would have the same value within Vulcan training. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We have kind of this scene at the beginning of Star Trek 4 where Spock's being retrained after he's back to life, and like they ask him like philosophical, metaphysical questions. They don't ask like who wrote Moby Dick or something, which of course that's human literature, so maybe it wouldn't be on that list. So like I take this as her like using what resources are in her mind to relate to her experience, and she's just kind of noticing like, oh yeah, I need to get small and go down the tiny hole and fit through it to like move forward. I don't know. There's all kinds of meanings you could put on that Alice in Wonderland thing. I felt like it was her like talking to the viewer on some level about her experience in Discovery so far. Like she's just kind of like, what the heck is going on? And well, I'm falling down the rabbit hole, and now I'm literally going through a Jeffries tube that reminds me of the rabbit hole itself. So you know, and I liked that we saw a Jeffries tube. That was nice.
Yeah.
Kind of a very Trek moment.
The Trek thing, yes. It's a milestone they've reached.
Trek things, yeah. It's such an interesting thing to write Trek because you have to make these references, and you also have to make them well, and you have to use it intelligently to service the plot or the characters. Let's see. Oh, this was one of my favorite scenes, and Martin Green was just brilliant throughout the whole thing. Like she's really carrying it forward, but it was a perfect scene when Burnham like. When Tilly's like, oh, you're not Michael Burnham, are you? And then Burnham turns and gives her like this icy gaze of cold steel. It was just like, okay, so it wasn't actively menacing, but it was just like a little intense. And then I like how that scene immediately transitioned into Black Alert, like the blackness of Burnham's soul, right? I mean, maybe they weren't going for that. I thought that was a potential little funny thing. Do
you think we're going to see any other color alerts?
No, I think that's probably it. I mean, like inventing one
not even a yellow
color alert. I think we'll see red and yellow.
We better.
Clearly, there's going to be somebody online making some joke about Rainbow Alert, but I'm not going to be the one to make that.
There were some red alerts in the first two, right?
There were some red alerts, yeah.
There was nothing but red alerts in the first two episodes. I felt like.
Good.
Yeah, I'm not sure they have Yellow Alert until Next Gen. An interesting question.
Actually, Yellow Alert, you remember in Wrath of Khan.
Oh, yeah,
right?
That's right. They did go to Yellow Alert in Wrath of Khan. Good eye. Let's see. So, yeah, Black Alert. The bridge is massive. Well, why do we keep getting massive bridges? Like, I guess it's easier to film on. That must be it.
And it looks cool.
If they need space to dramatically fall, it helps to have it.
So who wants to talk about Orville? Oh, go ahead. I don't want to skip.
I was going to say, we haven't had a whole lot of, just camera shaking.
I think they may have learned from the past series.
I appreciate that.
Also,
I want to see their faces, not
we've heard
struggle.
of shield percentages, I think.
Yeah, we did.
That's good. It's important.
Actually not.
I don't know how to calibrate my level of tension unless I hear a shield percentage.
That is exactly why it's ineffective.
Yeah, we need to know so that we can be like, oh, nope, stakes are raised.
If it's like 47, I'm a little less tense than if it's 46.
Well, yeah. I like that Lorca's been given discretion to fight this war however I see fit. That's cool. I like that she mentions the Geneva Protocols of 2155, which must have been made after the Romulan War. There must have been some horrific weapons that were used, and so they updated the ones from 1925. And I like that we saw, there's an episode in the third season of the original series called the Paradise Syndrome, and there's this obelisk that protects the planet from oncoming asteroids. And they talk in Star Trek Preserver about how all those obelisks were put there by this species called the Preservers. And so when she goes to the moons of Andoria Prime, she sees one of those obelisks. And I was like, oh, cool. That's a nice, subtle little detail.
Yeah, that showed up in one of the original series episodes, if I remember correctly. I saw photos side by side. It looked almost exactly alike. Yeah.
I think Tilly and Burnham are going to get along just fine. I think they're going to have a great friendship. I think it looks from the trailers like she and Lorca are going to get along.
Good.
I'm curious what happens next. I have a suspicion. Well, no, actually, they talk about this on After Trek that the monster kind of Aaron Harberts talks about. It kind of symbolizes Shaniqua Martin Green's character. Like it's trapped now, and everybody thinks it's horrific. And maybe we find out that it's just a tardigrade that got like magnified, and it gets hungry. Like that's its whole shtick. Like it's not a monster. It's like just an animal, and they start to do Star Trek-y things with it, like we need to free this monster and treat it respectfully.
Do you think it's just like an actual tardigrade, like a little microscopic creature, and because of the space-time distortion, it got really big?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Very possible.
That's cool. But there should also be there should be like a huge bacterium.
Yep. So there's something else. So final thoughts on Context is for Kings, and then I want to talk about surprise, I never would have heard these words come out of my mouth. I want to talk about Orville. So, but final thoughts first. Well, out of 5 or out of 10, whatever. How do you guys like this?
I'd give it 8.5 out of 10.
You read my mind, Richard.
I gave it a 9, but then I'm a diehard who would probably buy absolute crap produced under the aegis of Star Trek. So I'm not sure if I'm unbiased enough to provide objective reviews for this stuff. In fact, that's an interesting thing to talk about, is like part of the past 10 years for me, because the first 15 years of my life, the past the 10 years for me have been discovering that people think that Star Trek isn't perfect or something. I grew up watching these, and we know from psychology there's something called the mere exposure effect, where if you're exposed to a stimulus and you're exposed to it over and over, you're more likely to evaluate it positively, just because it's familiar. And so Star Trek was kind of like that for me. I, never grew up engaging critically with literature. Like it was just kind of this thing that I watched because it was familiar, it's comfortable, I like it. The red alert is pretty, red's my favorite color, and it's all throughout Star Trek 2, those kind of things. But as I developed with it, more recently I've realized, some people are right. Some of this stuff is not perfect. And so it's good to have other people do critical ratings of these things, because I'm still coming out of that. So, yeah, I'd say it's a 9 if I hadn't already said, because I liked it and I really enjoyed it. It was fun. It gave me kind of what I want from Star Trek. So, from modern Star Trek. Modern Star Trek is edgy, gritty, dark, complex, nuanced, shaded. There's different things going on, and it's long form, which I like. So, okay, bonus round. Who has seen Orville?
No, I have not.
Yeah, after I kind of blithely badmouthed it last week. Yeah. I have a really good friend, blithely and blindly, I will say. My really good friend, his name is Ryan Schoenbeck. I told him I'd mention him specifically on this podcast. He runs a company called Generosity Leadership. He's a coach. He's brilliant. Travels around a lot. Anyway, he heard that Discovery was coming out and that Orville was coming out, and he watched Orville first because it came out first. And I'm like, dude, you should watch it. You'd love it. It's really great. It's entertaining. It's fun. It's like Star Trek. And I was like, yeah, that's stupid. I don't want to watch a shitty ripoff by some fanboy who's trying to hide the fact that he's stolen everything from Trek. Yeah, go ahead.
I've always learned that no matter what everyone else is saying, how they're bad-mouthing something, it's always good to form your own opinion. But I've heard Orville has its moments, having not seen it. And they also included an actress who previously appeared in DS9. Yeah,
so there were 2 big points to recommend it in the first 5 minutes. Even if you just watch the first 5 minutes, it's all on Hulu and worth seeing. I really enjoyed it because it seems to kind of try to explore not the seedy underbelly of Trek, but kind of the sidebar of Trek. It's not Trek, but a lot of people from Star Trek who worked on Star Trek are working on that show. Andre Bormanis, for example, the science producer or science consultant or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there were several writers who were actually involved. Brandon Braga, for example, big name to have on your show. So I realized after a while, because Seth MacFarlane, who stars in it, who produces it, who writes it, is like a huge enough fan that he won like a cameo on season 3 of Enterprise. So like I was wait a second.
Did you see him?
Yeah.
Because he plays one of the engineering crew that basically says, "I did what you asked." Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not working. I did what you asked.
So yeah, the show is fun. I watched the first episode, and because my friend really kept pushing it, I watched it and actually allowed myself to enjoy it. At first, I was just like, all right, skeptical, and then it shows like more character interaction and more like some of the stumbling kind of difficulties that people have in relationships. And so in this episode, the captain actually, he's divorced from the woman who becomes his first officer.
Played by Adrian Palicki.
Yeah, who is exquisitely beautiful. And so this like guy, and I also, it was funny because while I was watching the screen, I realized, oh wow, Seth MacFarlane plays Stewie on Family Guy. Like because I can hear his voice when this guy,
Peter,
Ed,
Quagmire, Brian.
His name is Captain Ed, actually. Oh, he plays all of those?
Well, yeah, of course.
Funny. He's actually kind of brilliant. I will allow myself that. Like, Seth MacFarlane is brilliant.
MacFarlane's talented, extremely. There's no way he's not. He's really built a name for himself. He repeats jokes, and his self-referential humor is done to death. And Family Guy is his main work that everyone knows him. And is known him for. It's nihilistic to a pointless degree, where you if a show is on in the background, it's like, it's there, it's background noise. I'm gonna go do chores. But he is extremely talented. He's got the voice that you could use for practically anything.
Yeah, so Orville, I'd say is probably worth watching. Like it's an extended homage to Star Trek, where it's kind of cute how they have to rename everything. It's called the Quantum Drive rather than Warp Drive. They don't talk about the phasers because clearly they didn't come up with a name for those, but they do have them. It's the USS Orville, so it's like, okay, well, clearly you were going after, USS Enterprise, and you got a science officer, a chief medical officer. It's like traditional. It really is like traditional Star Trek with a slight twist in the direction of hardcore comedy. And if you want like regular traditional Star Trek, that I think would be a great place to go for it. I mean, like, there's only been one episode so far. I've read some of Jammer's reviews on them. That is really worth watching, I think. Like in terms of its ethical questioning, there's a character from a species that's all male that has a child that's female, and then the question becomes, should we change its sex? And it's like, well, that's actually something Star Trek might have talked about in the 60s. Yeah.
If every member of the species is male, doesn't that mean they're just unisex?
Yeah, probably. But to make it easy for the viewer, they call it, everybody's male. So. Like
when the female came out, wouldn't they like not recognize it?
They can tell that it's different.
Yeah.
I didn't see the episode, but that's the whole contention of the episode is that, this thing is different. So anyway, I'll probably be watching the rest and following it, catching up with it. But that's what I'm limiting myself to is Discovery, DS9, and Orville these days. I'm having trouble, Richard, just like you couldn't finish the 5th season of Babylon 5. I'm having trouble with the 7th season of Next Gen. Like, I've already watched All Good Things, so there's no cake at the end of. There's no cake at the end of the tunnel. I mean, it's like
I feel like there's maybe two good ones in there, but then there's stuff like Masks that's just kind of pointless. And then there's one where Beverly Crusher's having sex with a ghost.
Yeah, everybody loves to hate that.
Good God, I actually stopped rewatching the show because of that episode. It was like I have no motivation.
I've been watching Deep Space Nine again too.
Has so many great moments. God, I'm glad they didn't go the way of TNG with some of their weaker storylines. They just sort of committed to the full war arc. But I guess there's richer material there.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to acknowledge for our listeners, we're complete with Discovery for the time being. Looking forward to next week. Thank you for listening, and may you enjoy our new way to fly.
Thanks for listening. Good luck.
Good luck.
Magic Space Fungus.